In this video, I'll share with you guys the truth of Vietnam from a foreigner's perspective. Vietnam people love to take photos with their friends, family, relatives, and loved ones. This is another thing that you guys should be aware of. The local Vietnamese like to play this game known as the taco, or it's a shuttlecock kicking. So two players are playing now. They are very skillful. In Vietnam, the girls and women are more feminine than other countries I visited to. But then it also depends on individual, and then most of them like to go for the cosmetic surgery on their face and body, and this makes that they look similar. If let's say two people they have do the same cosmetic surgery by the same doctor, then they'll look similar. Once you're in a relationship with a Vietnamese girl, you need to take care of her whole family, because this is expected from the Vietnamese boyfriend or the husband side. If not, you'll be seen as an uncaring person, and then the parents and relatives will like have a negative impression of you. Vietnamese women are generally straightforward. They will speak their mind, whatever is in their mind. If they're angry, they will show it out, but generally they are actually quite caring. It's just that most of them have been in difficult situations, so they grew up being strong and brave, especially those who have been through the Vietnam War, the older ladies. But for the younger ladies, they're actually quite pampered. They like to take photos, selfies, and do not do household much. So most of the stuff is done by the men. You'll be expected to celebrate every single festival and celebration in Vietnam, including the two Women's Day. Yes, there are two Women's Days celebrated in Vietnam. The first is 8th of March every year. There is International Women's Day, and the 20th of October every year. And there will be the Vietnamese Women's Day. So, and then add in the birthday, anniversary. So, 1 year can over 10 days, and you're advisable to buy gift, also present, not just bring the girl for dinner and give her some gift. Now, the general average salary in Vietnam is not very high. In fact, it's quite low for the office staff working in the office. With a graduate degree, the starting salary can be just like from 7 to 8 million Vietnamese dong. That is not a lot. And then for the retail sector, it's like about 5 million dong. And then if you are a manager in a hotel, you can earn like from 10 million Vietnamese dong onwards. And even you're a director or something, you can only earn like about 20 million Vietnamese dong. So you'll be in a shock when you visit Vietnam and find that the advertisement for the jobs is like all these salaries in the low range. And then how do the local people survive? It all depends whether they want to buy a house or an apartment. If you're going to buy an apartment, the price will be more expensive than buying a private house, because that's how they is in the market. Let's say you're buying a 1 bedroom in the downtown area, district 1, 4 or 7, then the price can be like from 2 to 2.5 billion BLLION Vietnamese dong. And then if you buy a 2 bedroom, it can cost from like 3 to 4.5 billion Vietnamese dong, depending on the location. So, and then the price increase every single year. So if the average salary of between 5 to 10 million Vietnamese dong, many young Vietnamese people, they find hard to buy the house even on an installment plan. So some of them do not buy and just rent a small house every day, every month, every year. There are also some Vietnamese who do not buy house at all. They will just inherit their private house from their parent, meaning their parents actually like build a house for them or give them the house for free. So it's kind of sad when the parents have a few kids and all of them have to live in a rented small room. And then sometimes those places have limited access to like water, electricity. There's breakdown of electricity and water frequently. There is some kind of basic English taught in the schools, Vietnamese school from young, but then most of them they will forget it and do not actually practice when they reach adults. So you can find that they're quite limited English, or they just speak very simple basic English. But it also depends on people who speak good English, but that's in the minority. So about the reverse, if a foreigner want to learn Vietnamese, is it possible? Answer is yes. You can learn from many Vietnamese language school in Vietnam, be Saigon, Hanoi, Da Nang, Da Lat, all over, except maybe in the provinces they are limited. English, I mean the Vietnamese language school, but then in the large city like Saigon and Hanoi, you can actually easily find Vietnamese language schools that offer the teaching of Vietnamese to English speakers for a low fee a month. But you can also learn it online, like from YouTube, Instagram, or even Twitter. I have self-learned Vietnamese, and I find that there's no need to go to school once you get the basics right, like the pronunciation, and then the grammar. After that will be the vocabulary and the sentence formation and so on. But you will find that the Vietnamese like to speak to foreigners in only English, no matter if the foreigners speak Vietnamese first. But the Vietnamese will reply in English 90% of the time. So sometimes this can be frustrating because the foreigner wanted to practice their Vietnamese to Vietnamese people, but the Vietnamese people always speak English, so this becomes a problem. And then there are some ways to counter it. The foreigner can just always speak Vietnamese and not speak English, or just move on. The average height of Vietnamese girl is not very tall, from like 1.5 meter to 1.62 meter, but it also depends. There can be taller one. Just say in general, they are actually shorter than women and girls in other countries. And then the same goes for Vietnamese guys. They are generally not too tall. Average height is about 1.65 to 1.7 meters. Above 1.7, not too many. But then in the future, there will be more people, tall people, because of the diet improvement and so on. So many foreigners come to Vietnam and they think that Vietnam is a low cost of living country, things are very cheap. But I can tell you guys, it depends on the item. The price of hotels are cheaper, the food is also generally okay. But then if you are coming from Laos, Cambodia, you find that the price in Vietnam is higher. If you are coming from more developed countries like America, Malaysia, Thailand, or Singapore, then the prices can be like cheaper. Of course, there are 5-star hotels, and then the price can range from 20 million a night or even higher. There are always like people asking for money or anything. They pretend to be students. I just got approached by 2 of them wearing the jeans. They will say, "Excuse me, sir," but actually I can speak fluent language, including Vietnamese. One thing about the road traffic condition is very terrible. 24 hours, you can suffer from carbon monoxide poison. So always wear a mask if you are out on the street, and be careful when you're crossing the road, because we get run over. Accident. I have been run over by a motorbike, but lucky I just got some bruises. And the motorbike driver said that he claimed he did not see me and he did not offer any compensation, and he just drove his motorbike away. He's very reckless driving. Have you guys wondered why sometimes the road in Vietnam smells funny, strange, and smelly? It's mainly because some Vietnam men, they just pee at the roadside, under the tree, or anywhere they like. So I became aware of this problem when I first visited Vietnam many years ago. So I was shocked and disgusted, because I didn't know such a situation existed in Vietnam, and there are no laws currently to protect the citizen from such a thing happening. And every day, I mean literally every day, I see the local men doing this on the roads in different parts of the Saigon, even in Hanoi, in Da Nang, Dalat, I see also. But in Saigon, the problem seems to be more serious, and I hope that this problem can be solved by issuing fines or even imprisonment to the offenders through the camera, which will deter such a irresponsible behavior and action. I have observed and noted some of the behavior of Vietnamese men is like, firstly, they like to smoke. Secondly, they like to drink. Thirdly, they like to gamble. And fourth, sometimes they have girlfriend, but they still find other women outside. I'm not saying all, but some of them, and I think this is not really good. But then, the reason, do you know why they drink a lot? Is actually from their father, who also drink. So this pattern is from generation to generation, and they start to drink in their teens or even younger. I've seen kids smoking below the age of 12 outside. It's like really terrible. And this situation happens is also because the price of the beer and alcoholic drinks is not so expensive in Vietnam, especially the beer, Tiger beer, all this is just like cents, not even $1. So this is one of the problem. If you follow the news in Vietnam, you can also see that the Vietnamese men tend to be violent. They actually beat up women. This is the truth. Not all men do this, but I see this on the news every day in Facebook, in other social media, and the video has a proof of it. Recently, a man just assaulted a woman in an apartment, and this was captured by the CCTV, the camera, and then the police is investigating the case, and this guy already been identified. He wears spectacles and he'll be prosecuted in court shortly. I think the sentence will be jail and fine together in this situation. Now, if you look totally 100% a foreigner, I'm sad to say this, but most of the locals will treat you as an ATM and will try to sell you something, and even scam you. I would say this is the truth, especially from countries which you don't look like Asian at all, like from the UK, US, Canada, and then maybe some other countries. But if you are from Asian countries, from Thailand, from Malaysia, then you're still maybe a local to them. They are not sure whether you are Vietnamese unless you speak their language, and then some of the patterns, the behavior that is similar to Vietnamese, then they will know you are not a foreigner. As discussed earlier, I think there is no point learning too much Vietnamese or to not get started at all, because once you learn the basic Vietnamese and intermediate Vietnamese, and then you understand what the locals are talking about 70 to 80% of the time, then when you try to speak to them in Vietnamese, they talk back to you in English. I find it rude actually. They don't really respect their own languages. There is something frustrating as a foreigner, and then you may face the same thing, and then you will ask yourself in the end, why do you go and learn Vietnamese? In the end, you cannot even practice with a Vietnamese, so there's really no point. They only help you to understand what they are saying, but when you're trying to talk to them, they reply you in Vietnamese. That's really like bad, I think. So there's no point, because in Vietnam, the young people actually speak some English, and it may be better if the foreigner do not learn any Vietnamese at all, so that reduce all this frustration. Foreigners also have the difficulty of extending their visa and getting a visa when they enter the Vietnam, and then mostly they can actually enter Vietnam with 30 days or 45 days free visa, and then when they arrive at Tanzania International Airport, they have to wait a long time because the queue is quite long, from 1 to 2 hours. That's average. You'll be lucky if you clear the immigration in less than 1 hour. In Vietnam, 90% problems can be solved by money, unless it's a criminal offense like rape, killing someone. Then the law is still just, but then if you like get into fights or something, money can solve the problem, and that's the goal the same for petty theft and some other small cases. My advice to all foreigners wanting to visit Vietnam is that come with an open mind, and then just think about what I said is true from your own experience. After you experience everything, you drop me a comment here, and then share with me your experience of coming to Vietnam, be it a visit, working, or you stay here. I would like to hear from you guys. In my opinion, it's best to visit Vietnam just as a tourist, but not stay here. But then you use the money earned from your country, and then convert them into Vietnam dong, and then come here and spend. That'll be good. If you stay in Vietnam and you work here, the salary will be much lower. You have to accept a pay cut. That's one thing. And then with all the points I listed earlier, you think about it whether it's worth to stay in Vietnam. Unless you want to marry a Vietnamese girl, that's a different story, because then you have to sacrifice by staying in Vietnam even though you don't like Vietnam.